Welcome to this video. The Realistic AV900 Radio Shack in 1988.
Today we're looking at the Realistic AV900. Advertises the ultimate marriage between audio and video.
Knowledge.
What's interesting about this receiver, it sort of combines the functions of a stereo receiver and a cable box. It was introduced in the 1988 catalog for $599.95. The price stayed the same in the 1989 catalog. And then by the 1990 catalog, it was gone, and it was a half-price sale. I bought it in 1990 for half price and used it in high school to listen to a bunch of loud rock music, and it worked great. Just looking at this receiver compared to the Yamaha here, I mean, which one of these do you like better?
Both.
You like both? Well, a lot of people might say the Yamaha on the bottom looks better. Definitely the Yamaha and other receivers of that vintage have held their value better. The AV900 you can rarely find. It's rare, but it's not really well desired, so it's only about $60.
I like it.
Yeah, I like it too. And then this one is $150 to $200 depending on condition.
Yeah, we got it from when there was a dead spider in it.
And that one was.
If you watch our other video,
we got it for $30. This is like digital versus analog. The boxy look with the digital display and all the buttons was something we really wanted, and matches the receiver closer that I use today for my main receiver, which is this Pioneer THX thing. But anyway, so let's look at the trade-offs between these two receivers. You've got kind of more of a digital 80s perspective and then the 70s perspective. Volume control definitely makes sense as a knob. Here you just got to punch the button repeatedly. It takes a while. Preset stations. This Advantage Radio Shack on this one, you just punch it like a car. It works out pretty well. But, again, sound quality-wise, this guy's going to win out. There's less hiss, and it just has a cleaner sound. Why would you want to use simulcast? The reason for using a simulcast is to play the sound from the TV. The reason,
sound from the radio.
Yes, the reason for using the simulcast is to play the picture from the TV and the sound from the radio. You call the cable company, they'd come out to your house, and they would split the wire, and they'd send one over to your stereo. And at the time, in the early 80s, I think we did that once, and you could get, I think, MTV and HBO.
Said he was nuts. But is it any more rational for you to listen to MTV on a cruddy little television speaker when you can get it in stereo?
Science!
Call your cable company and order MTV In Stereo.
So you could basically be watching TV and just go over and turn up your stereo and hear a little bit better quality sound signal.
That's why it's great.
It was there kind of in the early 80s, but this receiver came out in 1988, and by that time, MTS stereo TVs were already starting to become available, and probably anybody who spent the money on this type of receiver would have one of those TVs. So here's the back. You got tons of connections. You got it basically works like a VCR. You can pass signals through it. You got an output for your TV as composite video and RF channel 3 or 4. There's a switch there underneath the antenna. You got all your analog video inputs along the top. You got stereo inputs, outputs, typical stuff. Phono preamp, phono ground, cable switch for different types of cable systems, speakers, and switched and unswitched outlets. Now let's look at the inside. What's interesting about all those wires, I guess, no two sets of wires with the same number of pins in this area have the same color. So I'm assuming that is for ease of assembling it. And this is, if you look at the board, it's a Radio Shack product. It's not a rebadged Pioneer or anything. The boards are Radio Shack boards. The top board is the video board, and the bottom board is the audio board. I'm not going to take off the video board because everything's working fine on this receiver. I bought this in 1990. It was first introduced in 1988, and it's still working, 30 years later, I guess, for me, 28. But it was only warranted for 2 years, whereas, the Yamaha broke it. I used the heck out of this thing, so it really wasn't from lack of use or anything. All right, now if I go to TV mode, I can then listen to TV. Now there we have a camera just hooked up, and I can also flip over the VCR. There's the VCR. So notice how quick this thing flips between channels. Yeah. Now see, you're hearing sound from the radio and picture from that.
Oh, she's lip singing.
In some ways it's pretty cool in that it does a lot of different things. However, it is sort of a cautionary tale because a lot of the features on this thing are so married to analog video, they're no longer useful. And so why did it fail, or should I say, why did this thing not take off? I mean, it was their flagship receiver and top of the line for 2 years. Obviously, it didn't sell well, but let's look at some of the reasons. I have some theories. So in 1989...
You had a whole box of them.
Yeah, of catalogs. In 1989, they introduced all these other receivers too, beneath that one, but that were new for 1989. But then in 1990, they're all gone. They sort of did a reset, and there's nothing but these two Optimus high-end receivers, and the AV900 and all those other new receivers are gone.
New.
Gone too. Yeah, that's new for 90. Obviously, something happened, internally at Radio Shack, because they've got realistic products like these little mini micro amplifiers that have been around for years. But for some reason, they switched from realistic to Optimus in 1990. And one of the reasons is like the realistic products, such as the AV900, didn't have surround sound.
Wife approval.
So one thing that's often blamed for the failure of products or the WAF or wife approval factor, it's also been referred to as the babysitter test. And the idea is that a piece of electronics...
Okay, the babysitter's coming over.
Yeah, exactly. The babysitter's
coming. I don't know how to use the tape deck.
Exactly, you got it. That I think may be a myth, because if you think about the past, they used to use record players and things that were more complicated than this stuff. So I think it's more about expectations.
How long do you think it takes the average person to take off one tape and thread in a new one?
People have the expectation they should be able to just flip on a TV and watch it without doing a bunch of stuff. Sometimes you want to sit down and watch a movie. Sometimes you just want to get the weather. And in theory, this thing would work. It was designed to be the center of your audio-video system to control everything. It's got a switch dial that it can turn on your TV, pick a channel with one remote. However, the minute you move into a type of TV with its own remote that can't be powered off, you got to have the TV remote. So then you're at two remotes, and then you're fiddling with inputs. And I think, in general, a lot of these overall systems are just doomed to fail because of changing technology. I always treat this surround sound and big sound type stuff as an add-on. You should be able to turn on the TV and watch it and then add that on. Whereas a product like this AV900, everything has to run through it. And then finally, the VCR dubbing scenario is unrealistic for most households. If you have two VCRs, you're not going to locate them together in the same room. You're going to put them on two separate TVs where you can watch them independently and just bring them together when you copy a tape.
This monitor is a TV. It's huge.
Yeah. You're probably not dubbing tapes regularly, and if you are, it's probably kind of an occasion where you'd bring it out and hook the wires up and put it back where it goes. I know that was for me, and even then, I probably would not want to introduce another thing in the middle of the signal path, like this little switching device, which might degrade the signal. I wanted to squeeze whatever quality I could out of that copy. What do you think of this thing?
It's awesome. I see you next time for another video.